Why hello there, how's it going? Sorry about the delay on this video, it was meant to come out last week but life stuff got in the way, and so as you may have heard, there's been some pretty major news in gaming circles with a massive deal to buy out EA from, well, Saudi Arabia. It's not just them, but that's mainly the gist of it. Initially I wasn't going to make a video about this because I didn't see it as a big deal, but then I saw people all over the internet melting down about it. Some of them to a laughable degree, honestly, including the games media. The games media, in fact, are by far the funniest ones because just a few weeks ago they were demonizing EA, they were throwing them under a bus. And now today they're over here crying about it, they're losing their minds, they're acting like we're at a funeral or something, I don't know what's going on. And now if there's a rule that you guys can follow pretty consistently, is that if you ever see games journalists mad about something, spazzing out, spitting all over themselves, etc., that's probably a good thing. This is not a 100% chance, okay, but it's pretty solid, trust me. I studied statistics in Versailles back in 1839. Usually that would kind of be a good point to end the video, you know, it's like, hey guys, these morons said that this is bad, which means that this is actually very good. And so yeah, that's it, okay, I'll see you guys on the next one. Remember to like and subscribe, and you know, that's about it, see ya. But, you know, instead let's dive into the topic a bit more and cover some of the concerns that I've seen brought up as to how this is going to affect EA, and most of all, how is it going to affect us? So let's take it piece by piece. So, number one, of course, people have been worried about the general state of the company. Like, what's going to happen to EA now? What's going to happen to studios? Are they still going to be EA? Will they still have the same studios, make the same games, etc.? And this is mainly the reason why I wasn't interested in making this video, because the answer to most of these questions is that we just don't know for sure. We don't know exactly how this stuff is going to go, but the exaggerations that some people have gone into are what made me ultimately make the video. Number one, so that people can chill out a bit. Number two, so they can be a bit better informed, but of course just a bit. After all, I'm like 90% shitposting and only like 10% industry analyst. Definitely drop a like and subscribe though.
It's really flash, we got lots of titties and some incredible molders.
So anyway, first off, the layoffs. Lots of people worried about mass layoffs, like, oh no, oh my god, so many people are going to lose their jobs. And yeah, that's actually kind of accurate, I'm not gonna lie. If you look around at the industry right now, even without these deals, we've already seen a lot of layoffs just on the regular because of studios underperforming. So of course a huge move like this is going to have restructuring, and that restructuring is going to bring some firings. But we have to look at what kind of layoffs we're talking about, because, you know, and I don't want to sound like a heartless asshole here, right? But yeah, some layoffs are really necessary. Like, I know it sucks, but it is what it is, it's crucial. If you've been watching my videos, sorry about the brain damage in advance, you will have already heard me complaining about how bloated the games industry is, how these major studios and these major publishers love to cake themselves up with dozens of thousands of people for no reason. This is part of the reason why some studios keep failing to deliver and ultimately end up in layoffs and shutdowns all on their own. And I know that some of these companies suck too, like, hey, hello, this is the games industry after all, where so many of these companies treat their developers like shit with crunch and etc. But it's also not black and white, where all developers deserve to be protected and no layoffs should ever happen. We can look at situations like that Black Panther game by EA, for example, or the recent case with Perfect Dark by that Xbox studio that also got nuked. The Initiative, I think it was, and in these situations, there's really nothing to be done, man. Like, you can't spend so much time working on a game and have so little to show for it. You can't just expect a company to keep sustaining an entire studio if the stuff just isn't working out internally. It's actually meme-worthy how a small team of about 30 mainly French men and French women were able to put together Expedition 33 in about 4 years of development. By the way, an achievement games media likes to water down with articles like these. Once again, fellas, it's pretty consistent. What they like is cringe, what they push is garbage, what they condemn is good, and what they try to play off as not a big deal or as impossible is actually a major deal. But anyway, like I said, I studied this stuff at Versailles, bro. Like, where was I? Oh yeah. French people, terrible cheese, but damn, that their video game is one mighty fine achievement. And they did it with a fraction of the budget and a fraction of the workforce that major publishers have. And there's more examples of this, and this isn't even to demonize studios having over 100 developers. I think it's fine for a AAA studio to have hundreds of devs, so long as they're all actually competent and filling important positions that are required for game development. We already had studios with like 300 developers 10 years ago, often in separate teams working on multiple games. The problem is that nowadays, AAA fills itself up with unimportant positions and morons, and sometimes morons in unimportant positions, while simultaneously the games get worse. And you know, I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to be the dude who goes and triggers a bunch of people or whatever. I hate angry bad-faced jackasses in my comment sections labeling me as this or that or the other based on nothing. But someone has to tell the truth here, and the truth is that because of politics, studios have been inching away from merit and performance. In fact, even away from their very own fan bases. I have covered this before too, but for the sake of keeping this video on topic and not detract too much from it, I'll at least touch back on some of the most important things, but for more context, please feel free to check out my videos over the past year. I talk about a lot of these things in more detail. Because I've seen some comments about me with people exasperated with confusion or, you know, maliciousness because they think that I'm either grifting or they think that I'm deluded, making random crap up. The truth is, guys, I don't want to make every video super long by covering things I've already covered before. I don't mind revisiting things sometimes, but to people like this, if there's any of you watching right now, it's not my fault that you guys are uninformed and unwilling to check out previous videos. Now back to the real deal. Anyone who isn't being intellectually dishonest isn't going to deny the cultural and political inclination of the games industry over the past decade, especially exacerbated when studios get too big and go full corporate, having to then hyperfixate on their optics and having to bend over to commitments to politically driven garbage like ESG and DEI. This is even very relevant here because this is what happens when your company is publicly traded, you know what I mean? When you have to attract investors to your company, you have to play the politics game. Now that EA has gone private by being purchased, they no longer have to, but we'll get to that in a second. At the end of the day, this is never just a numbers game and eventually, inevitably, invites activism into positions that matter, positions that affect not only their games but their hiring processes. Again, I talk about this in more detail with examples in other videos, so when I hear about there being big layoffs coming, I don't really feel particularly bothered by it. The games industry, the way it is right now in the AAA space, is unsustainable. Games are costing way too much money to make, taking way too much time to come out, and then when you look at stuff like this is from Sony, by the way. I used to use Ubisoft as an example here of this stuff because they had 7 separate departments like these which do nothing but leech money from the company without providing anything of worth, but now we got Sony with 10 of them. So that's pretty great, pretty exciting for the future of PlayStation. When you look at this and you realize how much money is being wasted away in crap like this, which sadly also impacts the content in the games with developers having to work with hypersensitive creative restrictions, what do you really have to be afraid of when it comes to mass layoffs? I'm not afraid at all. I want there to be mass layoffs. I want these companies to clean themselves up and go back to being video game studios. None of this is necessary. None of this has helped the industry at all. All this garbage has done ever since all this piece of shit started getting incorporated into these major studios that became major companies is the games got more expensive, they've also gotten worse, they've started taking way longer to come out, now they're trying to make them take less time to come out by using Unreal Engine 5. Everybody wants to use Unreal Engine 5 despite the games coming out fucking broken. Guys, it's just, this shit is useless, okay? It's useless. It's not doing anything. All it's doing is leeching money from the companies. All it's doing is that it's there so that they get little benefits from fucking, you know, public trading. That's it. That's all this shit is doing. It's for them to get grants and to get benefits from their investment deals. The only fear when it comes to mass layoffs should be if good talented developers get targeted by the mass layoffs and the useless people in these committees and programs and initiatives etc. manage to slip through the cracks. These major studios and companies in AAA need to slim down if they are to make it. Being bought out and going private is an opportunity to do so. It's just that, of course bad decisions and mistakes from out-of-touch executives can still happen and probably still will, 100%. So let's actually talk about some more of that right now. If there's one thing EA is known for, it's for being a terrible company to their customers. They monetize the shit out of their games, they're unashamedly greedy, and if they could, they would take away even more of our games to sell it to us separately at a higher price. So some people are concerned that now, with this deal, this aspect of theirs is going to get way worse. It's usually a fear that pops up whenever Tencent is brought up as well, and the thing is that, well, yeah, going private doesn't necessarily mean that every decision they make is going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that we're not likely to run into problems. It's just that you also have to acknowledge the mentality of the people spending $55 billion on buying a video game company. These people want to make money in return, and if they know the games industry, then they know that this is a risky and lengthy business. You can't just shit out something in a year and make $1 billion. It just doesn't work that way, and I think that they know that. So it is my hope that instead of this being a bad thing where EA's new owners look at all their games and monetization and triple down on all of it to try and make a quick buck, even though that's clearly the idiotic course to take, they will instead focus on their strengths, on their better IPs, and do what they've been doing this entire time, but more efficiently. Which for us could mean hopefully better games, but it depends on what we mean by better. We'll get to this part in the next topic. But also very likely the same kind of monetization. I think that they are going to push it as far as they've been able to push it so far. Obviously, I don't believe their new owners are going to eradicate monetization just because it would be the right thing to do. Whether we want to admit it or not, monetization has established itself in our industry and it's never going to go away. It's just a matter of how far we will allow it to go whenever these companies gather up and prepare to push it some more. The better we push back, the more of it we can avoid. But for example, when it comes to FIFA and the crazy monetization there's been hardly any pushback. FIFA gamers just keep buying the same slop year after year. Sometimes it's just a fucking roster update and they buy it anyway, and spending money on Ultimate Team as well, so in this case, it's actually more likely that their new owners are going to double down on capitalizing on this, probably even in some more lavish and creative ways, since in general, Saudi Arabia is looking into expanding into entertainment and sports at a larger scale. So yeah, if you're a FIFA player, you're probably cooked. But I mean, if you're a FIFA player, you're like, your whole life has been cooked for a long time now. I mean, let's face it, if you're a FIFA player, you're not even watching this video. A FIFA Street player would be watching this video, probably crying in all corners of their house, waiting for the next FIFA Street to happen, which is just not going to happen, it is what it is. I cry too, like I said, it is what it is. But if you're a FIFA player, you probably don't even know that the fucking company was sold to the Saudis. There's nothing, I don't think they think about much of anything at all. They get up, they get on their Honda Civic, and they go to work. And then they get home and they play the new FIFA. And then when EA says that there's a new FIFA coming out, or they don't even see EA saying it, they just probably get the little ad on the game, or maybe they go to a store and then they see it right there. Hey, FIFA 27! And then they buy it. So all in all, at the end of it, I think FIFA players are actually going to be just fine. They don't care. They don't know what's going on. They're just playing FIFA. When it comes to the real games themselves, it really is a shot in the dark, because there's so many ways that games can get ruined. You got the monetization angle, where games are made artificially grindier and unrewarding in order to nudge players into spending money on battle passes, DLCs, loot boxes, XP boosts, so on and so forth. You got the political angle, where instead of a proper sequel to Dragon Age Inquisition that returns to the franchise's roots and gives us a banger of a finale to that whole saga that had been ongoing since years, years, you get Dragon Age Veilguard, a game so tainted by politically brain-rotted writers, directors, and designers that it never stood a chance beyond just becoming a laughingstock for the internet. You got the general mismanagement angle where a studio doesn't have a clear vision of what they want to do, or they get budgetary problems, or some random douchebag higher up thinks that he knows better and pushes the game off in some bad direction that hinders its development, so on, so forth. You know, like for instance, Mass Effect Andromeda initially, before they settled on what kind of game it was going to be, they were bouncing the idea around of having the same system that No Man's Sky had, where you can just get off of a planet, travel the fucking galaxy, and land on another planet without a loading screen. Who the fuck ever thought that this would be a good idea for a single-player Mass Effect game? I don't know, probably the same people at Bethesda who thought it'd be a good idea for Starfield before failing to implement it, but anyway. Until we see exactly what's going to be EA's direction, there won't be any telling of how things are going to go with the games, but I wouldn't expect any major differences. The one thing I could say I'd look forward to is, for example, as mentioned a minute ago, going corporate meant that EA had to comply with all manner of political nonsense to make itself more appealing to investors. You know, the whole ESG and DEI thing. Now that they're privately owned by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake and Affinity Partners, they no longer have to go so hard on that stuff. They're no longer held to it as much. Some people out there are either getting super excited about this and thinking about, you know, for instance, oh, Saudi Arabia is in the Middle East and the Middle East is super against this ideological stuff, so hey, the games are gonna be super based. And then some other people are getting super angry and worried for the exact same reason, going like, oh no, they're going to be even more bigoted. Oh god, what will the gays do? In fact, one of the Dragon Age Veilguard writers, the main one actually, and yes, one of the ones who got fired, was whining about this on Blue Sky, which was funny as hell, because at the time, it was like, what are you talking about? Like, oh my god, just shut up, this is all conspiracies. You guys are just bigots. There's no agenda in the studio doesn't have any weird hires or whatever, but now it's like, I mean, just read it for yourself. I'll read it, I'll do the voices. Because it's not a straight sentence, you know what I mean? It's more of an imaginary cope session that the writer here wrote with his immense talent. So let me just read here for you guys. It is a conversation between the buyers and EA. The buyers go first. So, your games, guns and football, yes? Mostly guns and football, yep. No gay stuff? No politics we're not going to like? Definitely not. Yeah, we would never. Could you give me a sec? I just need to shut down the studio real quick. I love this so much. First of all, I'm happy that we got a little bit of extra, you know, Veilguard dialogue for us to read through here. I mean, it's been a long time now and I genuinely miss it. But the favorite part is that Bioware is truly never going to beat the allegations like this. This dude, or whatever he identifies as, he just shot them in the foot. Actually, more than he shot them in the foot and he kneecapped them. It's kind of crazy. He just affirmed that this is what Bioware is. This is their identity. They're no longer the Dragon Age studio or the Mass Effect studio, no longer the once proud KOTOR studio, you know, who specialize in adventurous, dialogue-heavy action RPGs across the board. Now they're just the gay politics studio. And this, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is precisely why writers like this guy needed to get fired from the studio. This is why these types of developers need to go. This is why these layoffs are actually a good thing and not a bad one, because there's way too many of these people in the industry who are literally unable to separate their jobs from their politics. They don't even respect the goddamn properties that they're working on. This guy and the rest of their cabal took Dragon Age's identity, twisted, mangled it, and pissed on it to the point where all that was left was the terrible result that we got with Veilguard. And they would have done the exact same thing with Mass Effect and anything else that they ever got to put their hands on, because this is how they see things. These are their games. They are reflections of their identities, and their identities are no longer whatever the studio truly stood for. Storytelling and all that stuff? Fuck no, who cares about that? It's all about the gay politics. Same problem with Obsidian that I'm afraid of and spoke of earlier this year. that identity that these studios had and carry themselves with of being master craftsmen of stories and action RPGs is gone, and all that remains is political brain rot. Political brain rot that they put on full display, just like this, where some bullshit that nobody really cares about, at least not as strongly as this, is actually their entire identity and brand. I am so glad that this guy got fired from Bioware, and I hope that whatever place he landed on fires him too, instead of placing him ahead of a project as it was with Veilguard. It will not work. It'll never work. I wish it wasn't this way. I wish we could just separate art from the artist, but it's impossible to do so when the artists themselves refuse to do it. But anyway, sorry for that little rant, let's get back on topic. So a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum are harping on this concept of Saudi Arabia completely cutting out certain things, certain themes, certain ideologies, so on and so forth, because they're Middle Eastern, and if I was you guys, I wouldn't really pay too much attention to this aspect just yet. At the end of the day, they want to make some money. I don't think their values are going to get in the way of a paycheck. If they did, they probably wouldn't have bought the goddamn company in the first place. The only thing going for it is, like I said, if a company goes private, that whole ESG thing is no longer so prominent, so we may see some changes that may correlate with this way of thinking. For example, a very useful thing would be getting rid of so many useless departments that hyperfixate on sensitivity, diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, etc. You know, all of this woke bullshit basically, which exists solely to give it that extra oomph in the public market. And if this does happen, we could see some positive outcomes, but only in the future, because doing this stuff does not happen overnight. Like, this isn't like Elon Musk and the Doge department cutting shit out within 3 months. These are major companies making major products. Also, these are companies that have been fostering an environment for this culture to establish itself and grow. And so you can't just cut, this culture out. You can't just fire everyone. So again, it's complex, and it's not something that we're going to see immediately. It's also dependent on what exactly they are going to be doing, what avenues they will pursue if their new owners decide to take them and make them focus on something else, like live services, for example. You already know Andrew Wilson, who is still the CEO, by the way. He's going to be pushing for live services because he is a fucking moron who can't think of anything other than short-term gain. Another issue is also, just to give you guys an example, there are companies out there who genuinely believe that wokeness does sell. It's less and less of them every day, but they're still out there, especially because major companies, they lie to their investors, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they come out and say, oh, we didn't make money and this is because this is not selling. No, they come out and they say, for instance, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Dragon Age Veilguard, these are games that were impacted by these issues, but they came out and they said that no, this was actually a hate campaign, the content is actually very popular. They gaslight themselves into believing bullshit, and sometimes it works, and it could end up with some of these owners going like, oh, the Westerners like this bullshit? Well, okay, let's keep making it then. And this goes for live services too, and other bad decisions. Like I said, they still left Andrew Wilson as the CEO, and I think that shows a pretty picture of what's going on here, which is the Saudis want to make money. They see EA, they see a company with a lot of potential, so they bought it, and they're going to let the CEO do his thing for a while longer. If it works out, then great. If it starts falling off, or if something major happens where a bunch of money was lost, then that's when I think that they might come in and remove Andrew Wilson, or maybe get someone else involved to make sure that some things do change. But until that moment happens, I don't think anything is going to happen. That's why I didn't want to make a video on this, because I didn't find this interesting enough. Like, I don't think anything, like, they bought a company, that's it. People who want to make money bought a company that makes money. That's basically what happened. This isn't like a nerd who bought the company and is like, I am going to bring back all of the good IPs that were lost. I am going to bring back Need for Speed Underground 2. I am going to bring back Dead Space. I am going to bring back Mass Effect in the maximum mode. I am going to bring back the KOTOR. That shit ain't happening. These are just people who want to make a lot of money and who want to break into entertainment, buying a video game company to make some money for them. So basically, if the money is still coming in, they're going to let them keep working. If the money is not coming in, then they might step in and be like, okay, bitch, who's fucking up? I'm just trying to give you guys like some some solid ground view of the situation, because it seems that for the most part, the narrative online has been very extreme. It's either, oh my god, this is awful, EA is dead, it's over, they're going to go bankrupt, or oh my god, this is the best thing ever, EA is saved, they're going to be the most based publisher now. The more logical thing is that we're not going to see that much of a change for a while. These deals are done very cautiously, they don't happen overnight, and so naturally, they're not going to make massive, super dynamic and super risky moves, nor do they even need to. I mean, EA is doing relatively well because of their major franchises still bringing in money. As much as I wish that I could get myself excited for Bioware games to be great again, or for Dead Space to be unearthed once more and finally be given the time and appreciation that it deserves, the truth is, I just don't think that much is going to change. There are way too many doom and gloom takes online from game journalists trying to paint an apocalyptic picture of what the hell is going on right now, which is the most hilarious thing ever to me. What I mentioned in the intro about them demonizing EA and then suddenly whining about them and their franchises wasn't metaphorical or whatever, it actually did happen. I covered a lot of Dragon Age Veilguard stuff over the past year, basically calling out lies and misrepresentations whenever they surfaced, which was very often because it just is what it is with games media, and one of their articles in recent memory across several outlets parroting the same thing was about how EA is a terrible company that ruined Dragon Age Veilguard and then fired innocent developers to cover its own ass. Now we get articles over here losing their composure about, oh no, what'll happen to EA? What about Mass Effect? What about Star Wars Jedi? What about any and all other single-player games? And the thing is, if you think EA is ass, which, let's be fair here, they are, they're just not solely to blame for Veilguard's fault, and in some other ways, they are to blame in ways that these game journalists would never mention, which is when it comes down to the ridiculous hiring and promotion decisions and the total lack of supervision of what the hell these developers were cooking. But anyway, that doesn't matter, let's move on from that. If EA is so bad, then who cares if this doesn't end up working out? Like, let's just say the absolute worst thing possible happens and EA just crumbles. Their games keep getting worse and worse, somehow even their main IPs that keep bringing in money stop doing so and they have to shut down. Now what? Am I supposed to cry for EA? It's the same thing with Ubisoft selling a fat chunk of itself to Tencent, except the media didn't frame it badly. In fact, they framed it as a good thing, as a victory, when it really wasn't. But they had to do so because the chuds were online going, hey look, they're selling off pieces of themselves, this is clearly a bad thing, and so the games media had to do the opposite. Actually, this is a victory. But anyway, going off of the same chances, let's say that Tencent's influence over Ubisoft's main franchises like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry make the games even worse, which in turn put the company in an even worse position. What am I going to do? Cry that this company that was already putting out bad games that I wasn't interested in is gone? I really don't see the reason why any of us should be crying about this, nor do I see the reason to be super gloomy about the deal either. Like, look, ideally, of course we would be way better off if we got better Assassin's Creed games, better Far Cry games, better Battlefront games, better Battlefield games, better Jedi games, better Need for Speed games, etc. You know what I mean? And so of course you would be sad if that didn't happen, but it's just not realistic. It's a what-if scenario. It's kind of like, you know, hey, what if Bethesda wasn't a fucking shitty studio? I've been sad a long time ago already, is what I'm trying to say. The things that made me sad were a long time ago. Now I'm not sad anymore, I'm just ambivalent, I'm dull. It's not dull, it's numb, that's what I meant. I'm numb. I don't care anymore. If something good happens, great, surprise me, yay! If something bad happens, it's just another bad thing, you know, in the long list of bad things as these companies keep burying themselves. What one could say is bad is, for instance, the inevitable layoffs that are coming because it is affecting real people, and of course, even though I see bad studio bloat being cut out as a good thing, it is inevitable that sadly some good people are also going to be swept away in the same waves. On that note, yeah, it is a bad thing. There's a lot of developers out there worried about tomorrow, and I wouldn't celebrate it either. I can only hope that the companies and studios around them hire them instead of prioritizing politically based hiring hiring where, basically instead of good talented people getting the positions, they end up being given to people like that Trick Weeks dude from the Blue Sky Post because of him being of a special demographic. There's that son of a bitch. Guys, I'm just saying what tends to happen. I don't have any malice over here, I'm just talking. Never forget that the main director of Veilguard immediately got a job as a director again over at the Wizards of the Coast studio. There's a lot of this politicking nonsense and nepotism nonsense in the games industry, and all I'm saying is that I just wish that talented, competent, and hardworking people would not have to worry about unemployment. If you disagree with that, that's your business. But let's just not pretend like this is something else, because it isn't. Even if they themselves may hate me for saying stuff like this and view me as a bad thing for the games industry or whatever because of me covering stuff like this and reviewing games like Veilguard in ways that they don't like because of being negative, as they like to say, and not mincing my words, I still wish them the best because I want this industry to be at its best. I want to have more videos like the ones on Atomfall, Tainted Grail, Expedition 33, etc. instead of videos like this one.
I would gladly retire from the world were such a day to dawn.
The reason why it's so difficult to predict where things go exactly is because of common sense. There's been so many instances where this industry just totally forgoes common sense and makes some really stupid ass decisions. For a guy like me, the common sense thing, for example, would be to not bet on live services at all, to never invest into making awful, unpopular content for the modern audience when it comes to major AAA projects like Dragon Age, and to have someone in charge who is aware of these things and keeps them under control, preferably with some tenure. Yet these issues kept happening all the time anyway, and there's really no guarantee that it'll ever stop. And this is because a lot of these people working in these higher spots in the industry are retarded. Yeah, that actually kind of nails the point right in the head, fellas. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's really not much, point in wasting any more time in this video. To give you a practical example, I would like to believe that Andrew Wilson was just diverting blame when he said that the failure of Veilguard was owed to the game not being a live service instead of the myriad of other problems the game had, including the decision from EA to make the game live service instead of a classical Bioware action RPG at the beginning of the project. Like, I would love to believe that Andrew Wilson was just using the situation to lie and push his investors into the direction of betting on more live services because, well, Andrew Wilson is retarded. But the truth is that, well, yeah, he might have actually been serious in that moment. There's a good chance that this man genuinely thinks that if the game had been a live service, it would have made $1 billion. So it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen ultimately with both Andrew Wilson and his new owners. All I can say is that when a company is out there, all open in the stock market, trying to whore itself out to anyone with money, it invites a lot more sludge and complications than when a company is private. And so that's why I am primarily optimistic, although not that optimistic. But at the end of the day, never forget that this is still EA, the butcher of promised franchises, the killer of prominent studios, the jackasses who said that single player is dead, the utter shitheads who caked Battlefront with so many loot boxes that they had to go to Congress or some shit because of how bad it was, and who then told us all that, oh, it's not loot boxes, it's surprise mechanics. They also told us that locking character skins behind hundreds of hours of grinding for a single fucking character was actually just because they wanted us to feel pride and accomplishment when getting it, or, gambling for it instead with microtransactions. Never forget the scumbaggery. Hope for the best with this deal, but understand that even if it does go wrong, it's Tuesday, you're not missing much. EA was already a professional at making terrible decisions, especially when it comes to single-player games. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Don't freak out, don't spaz out, but don't get too excited either. If I could ask for a wish out of this, like if I saw a nice little microtransaction-shaped shooting star flying across the nightly sky, my wish would be for us to see Mirror's Edge again. Let me know yours in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and one way or another I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.